Welcome to English 9, judging the relevance and worth of ideas, soundness of author's reasoning, and effectiveness of the presentation. Part 3, Quarter 4, Week 3. I am Mr. Nelpon Sambalad and I'm your teacher for this course. What could be the relation of that image to our lesson for this week? As you can see, you have there two guys who are in a heated argument, wherein the guy is even pinpointing to the guy who's wearing blue long sleeves. And it seems that the guy who's wearing the blue long sleeves is really thinking about the statements being said by the guy who's wearing green long sleeves. So if ever you will be in that kind of situation, what do you need to do? Are you going to judge the relevance and worth of ideas, the soundness of the speaker's reasoning, and are you going to give focus on the presentation of evidences being mentioned or uttered by the person whom you are having an argument with? So, what is the relationship of that image to our discussion for this week? Let's find out as we go through with the next slides. Our most essential learning competency for this week is the title of our lesson itself: Judge the relevance and worth of ideas, soundness of author's reasoning, and the effectiveness of the presentation. So, looking at the image, you have the a comparison between opinion and argument. So, opinion versus argument. So, when are we going to say that a statement is an opinion and a statement is an argument? So, let's read the text in the bubbles. Social media makes our society less safe, according to the guy who's wearing red shades. Then, the statement, the counter claim of the guy who's wearing blue shades is, well, I don't think so. It allows people to communicate quickly in times of crisis. The Wall Street Journal reported that during the 2015 Paris terrorist attacks, people in Paris used Twitter to let terror victims know their addresses in case they needed a place to take shelter. So, which is an opinion and which is an argument? Based from the colors, we know that the red bubble is an example of opinion, wherein you just have the claim, the statement of the guy who's wearing red shades, while the text in the blue bubble is considered as argument, wherein you have the what? You have the counterclaim of the guy who's wearing blue shades, and at the same time, the provision, the continuation of his argument or of his statement presenting evidence evidence regarding why he is believing into such. So that's argument. So as we proceed discussing the lecture, the more you will find out what is that argument. Okay? Let's have the next slide. Exchanging ideas is a part of everyday life as one socially mingles with others. Thus, you make arguments on a regular basis. This does not refer to quarreling or causing conflict with others, but the act of communicating one's perspective and point of view to others, opening up opportunities for discussion of ideas. Usually, noted as synonymous, argument and opinion are actually two different notions. While an opinion is a personal claim that does not necessarily require support and certain qualities, an argument, on the other hand, is a claim that needs making, to be worth making, valid, sound, logical, and must be provided with reasonable, relevant, and sufficient support. Read the following conversation. So before we read the conversation, again, what is being said in the introduction of our lesson is that we do exchange ideas in our everyday life among the people around us or with the people around us. Therefore, it is very important that what? that you know how to make arguments on issues or topics that you are talking about with the people around you. And remember that whenever we say argument, it doesn't mean that you are having a quarrel with someone else, but you are just exchanging ideas to the people around you, or you are opening up for opportunities. You're opening up opportunities for discussion of ideas. Okay? And as what is being said there, people tend to have in mind that opinions are synonymous to argument. But what is being said in the introduction is that they are different. Whenever we say opinion, it is just what? A personal claim that does not necessarily require support and certain qualities. It's just a declarative statement containing the opinion of someone else. While if it's an argument, you will notice that it doesn't stop presenting the claim of a person, but there's a continuation presenting evidences or evidence dealing with the given claim or statement. Okay? Now let's read the conversation. Social media platforms are highly disadvantageous, according to the girl. According to the boy, I believe otherwise. Social media platforms bring a lot of benefit because it makes communication and information dissemination a lot easier. So let's process the conversation as we jump into the next slide. Which statement do you think is an example of an opinion and which is an argument? If you have chosen the girl's statement as an opinion, you are right. It is an opinion as the girl has simply stated her notion on social media platforms. On the other hand, the boy also expressed his notion on social media platforms, only that he has asserted reasons why he believes so, making it an argument. So an argument tries to convince us that something is true. Again, an argument tries to convince us that something is true. Keep in mind that an argument to be considered one has to consist of conclusion and premise. Whenever we say conclusion, it is the idea we are convinced to believe, and the premise is the support or reason showing that the conclusion is true. An argument may be supported with more than one premise. The boy's argument can be analyzed this way. What is the conclusion in the boy's argument? Social media platforms bring a lot of benefits. And the premise is what? Because it makes communication and information dissemination a lot easier. So again, for you to consider a statement as an argument, it must have a conclusion and a premise. Okay? Let's go on. After knowing what is an argument and what it is consists of, now let's study the words and phrases that may serve as keywords in determining conclusions and premises and statements. So note that the list is not limited to these, and although their use helps indicate the conclusion and premise, they are not a requirement. However, their use helps you form a coherent statement in expressing your argument. So just like what I've told you, every transitional device or transitional word or expression communicates a certain idea. So the same thing goes dealing with these so-called conclusion and premise indicators that whenever you see them in statements, you are being given idea or hint that you are going to expose yourself to a conclusion statement in an argument or a premise statement or line in an argument. Okay? So what are the conclusion indicators? We have therefore, hence, implies that, it follows that, so, thus, consequently. For premise indicators, we have since, for, given that, for the reason that, because, as, is shown by the fact that. So in the boys dialogue, because it's used premise indicator, the presence of this word easily leads us to identifying the reason supporting the boy's conclusion. Okay? So you have there the reason supporting the boy's conclusion using the word because in the statement of the boy. So again, you must remember that there are indicators, words or phrases that serve as indicators that you are dealing with conclusion or premise, sentence or line in a given statement. Okay? Let's proceed discussing the next slide. Now, the best kind of argument is one that is not just valid, but also sound. It is valid if the premise logically supports the conclusion. It is sound if the argument is valid and if the premise and conclusion altogether can be verified true. You may have already heard of logical fallacies. They threaten the soundness of your argument. Fallacies are considered errors in reasoning, in speaking and writing. It may be committed accidentally, causing faults in the argument, or intentionally to trick the readers or audience into believing the speaker's or writer's argument. Either way, you should avoid committing them in order to form sound arguments. So remember, arguments formed using fallacies may be valid, but they are not sound. Here are some examples of logical fallacies. So, for us to be that good on judging the relevance and worth of ideas as well as the soundness of author's reasoning, it's good that we can determine what type of idea is being presented to us. Is there a fallacy in the statement or is there none? Okay? And of course, the effectiveness of the presentation can be checked on what type of evidence is used or how is the idea presented. Did the author make use of logical fallacies or did the author make use of claims that are considerably acceptable? Not just like what the claim of fact, claim of policy, and claim of value. Okay, so let's find out as we continue discussing our lesson. But for the meantime, you have there you have there an image showing what presidential candidates in debate. So the female candidate says, "I stand against going to war." That's her claim. And the counterclaim, "Since you are against war, you must be against our troops." So since you are against war, then you have there that you must be against our troops. Then the audience reaction, against our troops, is she really? So, to what type of policy is used by the guy in the debate, in that presidential debate? So, what could be the policy used? It is what? Is it hasty generalization or slippery slope? Okay, so let's find out as you learn about the different types of fallacies. Let us discuss the first type of fallacy of logical fallacies out of the four types. First is the hasty generalization, making assumptions about a whole group or range of cases based on a sample that is inadequate or not enough. So, hasty generalization is the product of making an assumption out of a less number of samples. Okay, as if hasty, from the word hasty, as if you are in a hurry making a generalization about something and your generalization is based on inadequate or insufficient samples. Okay? So, what do you need to remember about hasty generalization? Do not make a claim and say it is true if only based on just an evidence or two. So, just like in your research classes, you are not going to say or talk about the efficacy of the product if your sample is just what? If you only have a sample, the sample should be what? More, and of course you should have what? Tested it for a couple of times. Because if not, it is the other way around that you did, then your claim there would be a hasty generalization. Okay? A hasty generalization. So look at the example. Librarians are quiet people and disciplinarians. This is an example of stereotyping or over generalization. So it's under hasty generalization for you base your claim in the so-called convention. Okay? So it's based on convention. It's not factual, but based on a hasty generalization uh, pointing out this so-called stereotyping or over generalization. Look at the second example. My roommate said her philosophy class was hard, and the one I'm in is hard too. I warn you, all philosophy classes are hard. So two people's experiences are, in this case, not enough to base a conclusion. So again, whenever we say hasty generalization, from the word hasty, as if you are in a hurry making a generalization, and your generalization is based on unsubstantial or inadequate samples. Okay? So that's for hasty generalization. Second type of logical fallacy is what we call post hoc. So, stressing that the two events or concepts are related in the sense that one causes another when they're actually not. So, in post hoc, as if you have the cause and effect, as if you're making conclusion that the reason why this thing happens is because of the previous event. Okay? So, stressing that two events or concepts are related in the sense that one causes another when they're actually not. So, what do you need to remember about post hoc? Do not assume the cause and effect relationship between two concepts or events without considering other factors. Look at the examples for you to better understand it. It was cloudy this morning, so Sarah did a sand dance, and it did not rain. So the Sundance may not have been the reason for the rain not coming. So that is post hoc. Okay. Number two, President Jones raised taxes, and then the rate of violent crime went up. He is responsible for the rise in crime. The increase in taxes might or might not be the factor in the rising crime rates, but it was claimed as if it is sure and the only reason. So the same thing with that given example there, wherein the guy assumed that the one who's sending him email is that person. Na? So, you have there the statement based on, again, based on a certain event, which you assume to be the cause of another event. Okay? So, that is post hoc. Third type of logical fallacy is the slippery slope. Claiming a sort of chain reaction will take place, usually ending in some dark consequence, but there's really not enough evidence. So whenever we talk about slippery slope, as if you're going beyond wherein you should have stopped, but you decided to continue talking about your claim. And if that is the case, then you are experiencing this so-called slippery slope. So what do you need to remember about it? Do not slide all the way down or exaggerate in picturing the consequences attributed to a particular event. So look at the example. Animal experimentation reduces our our respect for life. If we do not respect life, we are likely to be more and more tolerant of violent acts like war and murder. Soon, our society will become a battlefield in which everyone constantly fears for their lives. It will be the end of civilization. To prevent this terrible consequence, we should make animal experimentation illegal right now. Even if we believe that experimenting on animals reduces respect for life, and loss of respect for life makes us more tolerant of violence. It would have been better to stop at that point. It is too much to slide all the way down to end of civilization. So that's what I'm trying to say there, as if you're going beyond your claim. So just like the example, if you don't do as I want, according to the boss, the company will go bankrupt, then the sector, and finally the whole economy. So you see, whenever we say slippery slope, as if you are exaggerating your claim, as if you're adding information or idea in your claim wherein you go beyond of the claim, as if you really what you really slide all the way down, no, to exaggerate your claim. And if that is the type of claim which is being presented to you or you are hearing, then you are dealing with slippery slope. The last type of logical fallacy is the appeal to authority. Appeal to authority referring to known personalities to back up a claim but aren't really experts, particularly in line with the issue at hand, instead of citing evidence. So, what they need to remember about it: do not impress readers with a famous name or a supposed authority who really does not have an expertise on the matter being discussed. Example: we should abolish death penalty because many respected people, such as actor Guy Handsome, have publicly stated their opposition to it. So while Guy Hansa may be an authority on matters having to do with acting, there's no particular reason why anyone should be moved by his political opinions. He is probably no more of an authority on the death penalty than the person writing the paper. So look at that image there. So tips from former smokers: you can quit. Now, if you're the one who's going to listen to a statement wherein you have there a line or two coming from any one of them, would you believe the statement that it is really what? Conveying a factual information? Of course, you won't, because you know that there is what? This so-called appeal to authority. But if the one who is mentioned there in the statement is someone who is known about tobacco industry, about the effects of tobacco, indeed a medical doctor, no, wherein you're able to verify the records, then indeed, no, indeed it is not just appeal to authority, but what? Containing a testimonial evidence coming from an expert. Okay? So, again, that is the fourth type of logical fallacy. The appeal to authority together with the remaining fallacies wherein you have the hasty generalization, the post hoc, and slippery slope. And the last one is the appeal to authority. It's easy to identify if you are dealing with that kind of fallacy. Okay? Let's continue. Let us now have learning task 1. Identify whether the statement is an opinion or an argument. In your pad paper, copy the table below and write the sentences indicating opinion on the first column and sentences indicating argument on the second column. Number 1. Writing an essay is laborious. Is it opinion or argument? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's opinion. Number two, traveling is an interesting experience since it is an opportunity to widen one's horizon by meeting other people and emerging in other culture. Opinion or argument? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Argument. Number three, answering modules is a fruitful learning experience. Opinion or argument? It's opinion. Number four, attending online classes is enjoyable because you get to virtually interact with your classmates and teachers. Opinion or argument? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's argument. Number five, the novel we were assigned to read is somewhat boring. Is it opinion or argument? That is Opinion. Number 6. The storybook is interesting due to the colorful illustrations and mysterious plot. Is it an opinion or argument? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's argument. Number 7. The artist's performance is commendable since there is precision in his every move. Is it opinion or argument? Again, it's argument. Number 8. Hiking is an enjoyable activity. Opinion or argument? It's opinion. Number 9. Keeping a journal is ideal as it helps me document moments in life worth remembering. Is it an opinion or argument? It's argument. Number 10. That actress has been brilliant since since the beginning of her career in the industry. So is it opinion or argument? It's what? Argument. Okay. So that would be all for learning task 1. Learning task 2. Identify the type of fallacy of the given statements. Write the letter of your answers on the blanks. So we have letter A, hasty generalization, B, post hoc, C, slippery slope, D, appeal to the authority. Number 1. Katrine's little sister was playing with building blocks. When Katrine passed by, she happened to sneeze and the blocks tumbled down. Her sister came running to their mom crying, telling that her sister ruined the palace she was trying to build. What is the answer? It's letter C, slippery slope. Number 2. If I fail in English 101, I won't be able to graduate. If I don't graduate, I probably won't be able to get a good job, and I may very well end up being jobless for the rest of my life. Number 2 is also letter C, slippery slope. Number 3, that local literary artist is a Nobel Prize winner. His opinion on the renovation of the Old Town Library cannot be disregarded. Number 3 is letter D, appeal to authority. Number 4, Sheila is on vacation and decided to visit another country. Upon arriving at the airport, she tried asking a local about directions and going to her accommodation. The man ignored her. She was convinced that the locals there are snobs to other nationalities. Number 4 is letter A, hasty generalization. Number 5, my grandfather doesn't know how to use a laptop. On the other hand, my grandmother doesn't use the family computer unless I am there to assist him. Old people are not computer literate. Number 5 is letter A, hasty generalization. Number 6, Mia's older brother failed to graduate last semester because he got addicted to mobile gaming. Therefore, their parents strictly limited Mia's use of gadgets and even refrained from buying her a cell phone on her birthday in the fear that she will become like her older brother. Number 6 is letter B, post hoc. Number 7, if parents would go abroad to work, their children wouldn't be guided well. They are going to make decisions without close parental advice or consent. Consistently, doing so would make their lives go astray. Number 7 is letter C, slippery slope. Number 8, our basketball team had been on a losing streak. Ever since I wore the new shoes my dad has given me, we started winning every game we participated in. They are my lucky shoes. Number 8 is post hoc, letter B. Number 9, I woke up with my stomach aching and noticed it's colder than any other morning. The drop in temperature might have caused my stomach ache. Number 9 is also post hoc. Number 10, if I eat chocolate today, I would eat one again tomorrow. I would probably allow myself to eat chocolate the next days. Then I would crave for more sweets like cookies and cake and won't be able to stop myself. My diet would be ruined. I'll get obese in a matter of days. Number 10, the answer is letter C, slippery slope. Done with learning task 2. Let's have learning task 3. Learning Task 3. The following are excerpts taken from editorial column articles of a campus newspaper, The Palladian, Volume 18, Number 1, June 2, October 2017. In your pad paper, identify an argument in every passage by indicating a conclusion and a premise supporting it. Let's have number one. The enforcement of shifting scheme in classes in Luis Palad Integrated High School is aggravating as it hampers the progress of the class. It also raised some considerations and concerns that are of course worth noting. To accommodate the big turnout of enrollees, Palladians had to follow different schedules, then eventually led to shifting in classes where students had to be divided to morning and afternoon sessions. The shifting scheme enables schools to accept more students and educate them in less crowded conditions as well as provide them with greater access to education. However, more than 6 hours of studying is quite overwhelming for them to catch up on all of their lessons and to shape their learning experiences. Slip of the Tongue by Karil and Kabuyao. So what is the conclusion in the given passage? We have the enforcement of shifting scheme in classes in Luis Palad Integrated High School is aggravating. What about the premise? As it hampers the progress of the class. Okay, so done with number one. Let's have number two. Number two, it is an advantage for every Tayabense to have a senior high school here in our very city. First, it gives parents and students alike a reasonable option. With LPIHS Senior High School program, students have an option to develop their various fields of specializations without having to paying expensive tuition and miscellaneous fees. Likewise, they don't have to spend much time, effort, and money for transportation. Second, LPIHS SHS program delivers quality education that every Palladian student is entitled to. The LPIHS administration carefully planned and selected the teachers who will handle the senior high school classes. Secondary school teachers who have finished their master's degree or on the verge of completing it are chosen for this purpose to ensure that the senior high school students will go through a whole new experience of learning. That's according to amelioration. Okay, so what about the conclusion? It is an advantage for every Tayabense to have a senior high school here in our very city. So that is the conclusion. For the premises, we have first, it gives parents and students alike a reasonable option. Second, LPIHS SHS program delivers quality education that every Palladian student is entitled to. So then with number two. We are now on the third passage. Casa Comunidad de Tayabas is a typical bahay na bato which was built during the Spanish colonial period and served as a guest house for visiting dignitaries. During World War II, it functioned as barracks for the Japanese. It got burned down around 1880s but was later reconstructed as a public school during the American period. This place is now known as a historic attraction according to the National Historic Commission of the Philippines. Today, the Casa Comunidad is already functional and houses the office of the city mayor, the municipal library, a museum, and events hall. The place is a real treasure not only to the locals but also to visitors because it is a history lesson in plain sight. Having it opened for the public was the best decision ever, as people get the chance to see it up close and glorify its beauty. Bits and Pieces by Andrea Faith Obenya. So for the conclusion, we have Casa Comunidad de Tayabas is a typical bahay na bato which was built during the Spanish colonial period and served as a guest house for visiting dignitaries. For the premises, we have during World War II, it functioned as barracks for the Japanese. It got burned down around 1880s but was later reconstructed as a public school during the American period. Also, we have today the Casa Comunidad is already functional and houses the office of the city mayor, the municipal library, a museum, and events hall. So they are all premises or evidences that support the conclusion that Casa Comunidad de Tayabas is a typical bahay na bato which was built during the Spanish colonial period and served as guest house for visiting dignitaries. Okay, done with passage number three. Passage number 4. Being nominated as Best School-Based Management Implementer is a great honor for Luis Palad Integrated High School because it mirrors its improving education system. Likewise, having been considered as a school with the best reading program together with the other finalists from different divisions is a proof that our teachers work hard for the proper planning of a program that will lessen and eventually eradicate the number of non-readers and learners under the frustration level in reading. These achievements are something every Palladian can be proud of, for they reflect the competence of the people in charge of running this school and the people behind planning of programs to further enhance and develop every learner's capacity and competency. Copy Talk by K. Angelic Hugo. So for the conclusion, we have being nominated as Best School-Based Management Implementer is a great honor for Luis Palad Integrated High School. For the premise, because it mirrors its improving education system. Okay? So done with passage number 4. We are now on passage number 5. Tayaba City has recently implemented RA 9003, also known as the Ecological Solid Waste Management Act of 2000. The basic policies of this act include ensuring the proper segregation, collection, transport, storage, treatment, and disposal of solid waste, ensuring the protection of the public health and environment, and encouraging greater private sector participation in solid waste management as well as cooperation and self-regulation among waste generators. There are still things that need to be addressed regarding its implementation. One is that the collection system of the local authorities is not really systematic. In other municipalities, collection are scheduled MWF for biodegradable and TTHS for non-biodegradable. But here in our city, I have noticed that our garbage are collected bio and non-bio at the same day and time. In short, no matter how segregated our garbage is, they still get mixed up in the dump truck once collected, inch by Carla Yang Yagan. So what is the conclusion? Tayaba City has recently implemented RA 9003, also known as the Ecological Solid Waste Management Act of 2000. How about the premise? We'll be having that answer as our premise, for it explains what is that RA 9003 and how is it being implemented as a city ordinance or act. So we have here the basic policies of this act include ensuring the proper segregation, collection, transport, storage, treatment, and disposal of solid waste, ensuring the protection of the public health and environment, and encouraging greater private sector participation in solid waste management as well as cooperation and self-regulation among generations. So, okay, we are done with learning task 3 after we finish dealing with passage number 5, picking out the conclusion and the premise in it. Okay, let's go on. Learning Task 4. The picture portrays a lot of scenarios relevant to the issue of climate change. In your pad paper, write down 4 arguments related to the said environmental concern. Make sure that your argument consists of conclusion and at least one premise. Use conclusion indicators or premise indicators in writing your sentences. So please be guided of the following conclusion and premise indicators. Now let's have example answers or sample answers. So first answer, we have conclusion. For conclusion, consequently, climate change has damaged the livelihood of the people as well as the economy of the country. For the premise, as numerous effects such as drought and flooding have been experienced. Second sample answer, we have climate change brings sufferings to community. For conclusion, and for the premise of it, we have for it constantly results to various catastrophic occurrence. Okay, so I would like to read your answers. So kindly, visit your Google Classroom and attach it in your Google form. Okay. Anyway, I am expecting that you won't be copying the given answers of mine, and you will be formulating your own answers. Okay. Let's have the next activity. Knowing how to form valid and sound argument allows you to engage in insightful conversations with others, especially those concerning relevant issues and matters nowadays. Remember the do's and don'ts in writing arguments. What are the do's? Make sure your argument consists of a conclusion and premises. Second, review if your conclusion and premises are logically related. So that's the thing there. Your evidences must be supporting your claim. Then, lastly, use conclusion and premise indicators if necessary. Okay, so you are aware already by now what are the conclusion and premise indicators. Of course, knowing them will help you to write good conclusions and premises, and also of course you are being given hint that you are dealing with conclusion or a premise. Okay, what are the don'ts? Do not use logical fallacies in your argument so as not to mislead, or even worse, to intentionally trick your readers into believing your argument. Example: hasty generalization, post hoc slippery slope, appealing to authority. And of course we have this one. I think it should be included in the do's. That do not forget to verify the basis of your conclusion and premises, if valid, true, and reliable. Okay? Do not forget to verify if the basis of your conclusion and premises are valid, true, and reliable. So that will be in the do's. Okay? Dealing with what? Dealing with writing arguments. Because as what we studied, when are we going to say that the argument is sound? You can say that the argument is sound if you're able to verify the conclusion and the premise. Okay, so for that second thumbs down, it should be in the thumbs up. Okay, so it should be included in the do's. Okay, people, so let's continue. We are now in the assessment portion of our discussion. So read the sentences carefully and determine whether the statement is true or false. So on the blanks, write yes if the statement is true and no if it's false. Number one, the premise is the idea we are convinced to believe, while conclusion is the support or reason showing that the premise is true. Is it true or false? Yes or no? The answer is no, because it's the other way around. Okay? It should be the conclusion first, as the idea we are convinced to believe, and the premise is the support or reason showing that the conclusion is true. Number two, there is no difference between an argument and an opinion. Again, it is no, it's false, because an opinion is different from an argument. Okay? Number three, hasty generalizations is a fallacy committed when making assumptions about a whole group or range of cases based on a sample that is inadequate or not enough. Is it yes or no? The answer is yes. So it's true. Number four, examples of premise indicators are therefore, hence, and thus. Is it true or false? The answer is false. It's no again, because they are indicators for premises. And number five, not all valid arguments are sound. Not all valid arguments are sound. True or false? True. Because if because it's possible that an argument is valid but it is not sound. For it to be sound, you have to verify the conclusion and the evidence. Okay? So that will be all dealing with the assessment part of our lecture. Okay, reflection part. Of course, I do believe that for learning task 1, 2, 3, 4, and including the assessment, you will be drawing there a star, because you're able to perform the task without any difficulty, and the task help you to understand the target content or lesson for this week's lecture or discussion. Okay, so that would be for the reflection. Thank you. Have a good day and God bless us all.